Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Danvers Historical Society. We hope you enjoyed today's virtual speaker series. Please be sure to visit our website, www.danvershistory.org, to find out details about our upcoming virtual events and programs. We truly appreciate everyone's support, help, and teamwork in making these virtual events possible. We want to thank our speakers, DCAT, our volunteers, members, and trustees. We hope you enjoyed today's lecture. Thank you.
All right, welcome everybody. Tonight marks a wonderful milestone sharing Danvers artifacts with the public. Volunteers have been freshening up all these exhibit cases, and the high tops that are out, the items on the high tops are only out for tonight. So a little bit of background here. I'll try not to go on. Volunteers have been providing the entire third grade of Danvers Public Schools since 1986 with a wonderful hands-on learning experience. These recent years, Sheila Kayser, National Park Service retired educator, has worked with the public school curriculum coordinator, Julie Pasternak, and many volunteers developing the third grade History Week program and is supporting activity book, Our Town, now in its 4th edition. Society's past president, Wayne Eisenhower, began a partnership with Professor Gretchen Sinnott of Salem State University in 2013. Sheila and Gretchen guide students in exploring the origins of our artifacts. The students share their research and the stories these objects tell us about our local culture. Some of those objects are also on display tonight. Society's past president, Thomas Page, who's here tonight, saw the need and personally funded the Society's newly designed website, danvershistory.org, with the ultimate goal of reaching a worldwide audience. COVID has presented many challenges, but our team found a way to continue these programs with the tools provided by our new website, the guidance of Danvers Community Access Television, and the support of private donations and grants to fund website coding and photographic training. April of this year, Professor Sinnott was presented a Civic Engagement Award by her peers at Salem State University for her work with us. That most likely caught the eye of Liam's advisor, Margot Shea, Associate Professor in Salem State University's History Department. The dedicated Danvers Historical Society staff and volunteers have been coordinating speakers, scripts, and filming at various historic locations. Professionals Barry Kaplan of The Finer Image and Brian Johnson of BJK Productions are guiding the Society in photographing our artifacts that are in the new gallery on our website, which we will show you this evening. Tonight, Liam Jones presents the work of his internship for a postgraduate certificate in public history from Salem State University. Liam has been exploring and researching artifacts with curatorial volunteer Sheila Kayser to digitize the Danvers Historical Society's collections. This project was funded in part by a digital capacity grant from Mass Humanities and supports the efforts to photograph, manage, digitize, and present artifacts to the online audience. This grant, funded through the National Endowment for the Humanities, has provided the Society with a skill-building opportunity that will grow digital and virtual resources for all our educational programming. It will also benefit a worldwide audience for years to come, while preserving and educating on the rich history of Danvers. Many folks have worked on this project. Sheila's husband, David Kayser, is helping with editorial assistance on our website with the artifacts. And Liam, tonight, He's also looking forward to taking his experience further and entering into the field of public history. He was recently hired by the MFA within their elementary education program. Welcome.
So, hello everybody. I look down occasionally it's because I unfortunately forgot to print off my little pamphlet today, so I have this right here. Oh no, it's a little thing I wrote up. So we have our little,
Yeah.
our little representation.
I have a key here. Liam put together a key for tonight's exhibits. You're all welcome to grab one later. And if you want me to drive, I will, the website.
Oh no, that's no worries. So first and foremost, though, I just really want to thank all of you guys for coming here tonight. Yep.
You've got a very nice voice.
Oh, thank you very
Take
much.
off the mask.
Oh, can I take off the mask?
Yeah, please.
Oh, sure.
So we can hear you.
So, first and foremost, I just want to thank you guys so much for coming out here tonight. You know, it's always nice to see people supporting our local history and everything, so I just really want to thank you guys for that. Second, I also want to give specific thank yous to Sheila, Dave, Laura, and Nora back there, because if it wasn't for you guys, I would not be able to be here today. So, thank you guys very much, especially, Laura and Nora, you guys were the ones who interviewed me, so I really want to thank you guys for that and accepting me. Sheila, you've definitely taken me under your wing, and I very much appreciate that. And Dave, you taught me how to photograph objects correctly, so I'm very happy about that as well. So, starting right into it, this project has certainly been a very nice hands-on experience for me because a lot of times I've really only had education on this. I haven't really had a lot of hands-on experience since this is my first time being able to actually handle artifacts and things. So a lot of the artifacts that you see on display tonight, all of these were actually either photographed and handled by me entirely, as well as Sheila, and also Laura and Nora helped out as well. And so I'll sort of take you through some of the cases that we have right here first. It's kind of tough to see, so I won't have you guys crane in next. But in the back there, we do have on display some standard crayons. So there was a standard crayon company in Danvers. I'll actually bring it up there real quick. I can bring it up. There. Where'd you go, standard crayon? I know you're here. This is our website, by the way, if you guys could not tell. It's very fancy. This right here is the Standard Crayon Company. So the Standard Crayon Company was a company from Danvers itself, and it actually started out in 1840 or 1869 rather, and it quickly became a very, very large company in Danvers. Had about 60 different employees within only a few years. And they produced mostly crayons for, believe it or not, these shoe companies that were around this area. Now, shoe companies were fairly important because, as Sheila and I have found out, there was one company in particular, the Ideal Baby Shoe Company, that became extremely large. It became the largest shoe company in basically America, and they even had shoes that were sent all over the world. They had a shoe that was sent over to the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth I, when she was born. I don't know if she still has it. We have yet to really get in contact with her. She won't return my calls. But we do have on display, as you can see over here, in this case right here, case number 7, we have several different versions of their shoes. And they really do all sorts of kinds of shoes there. They do fancy shoes, that's what those pink and fluffy ones were from. That came from Colorado, where her shoes were ending up in as well. And also sort of more standard shoes and formal shoes. We also even have like baby christening shoes and things. In addition to baby shoes, which is sort of our more industrial aspect of Danvers history, we also have other aspects of Danvers history. So for instance, on this case over here, number 10, we have oak knoll, several various like commemorative plates and cups that represent Oak Knoll. Oak Knoll was a house in Danvers that was owned by J.G. Whittier's cousin, and that's where J.G. Whittier lived while he was in Danvers, and he lived here for about 12 years, all the way leading up to his death, and he called Danvers his true home. So though he was born in Haverhill, the town I live in now, we were the true home here in Danvers. Now, there were a lot of different artifacts, and I wish I could go through all of them, but I feel like that would take just a lot of time. So I'm just going to quickly sort of just mention that we have a lot of different artifacts on display here. The different artifacts are from different periods of Danvers history. And Danvers, as you all know, has a very long and has a very complicated history. So for instance, we have General Francis S. Dodge over there. He was not only a general during the Cuban Wars, but he was also a captain during the Indian Wars. And so he sort of has a tumultuous history, but he's also an important aspect of our Danvers history here. But we also have, we have Olympic history here as well. So in the more modern day, we also have on display Megan Duggan, however her name is pronounced, Megan Duggan's hockey stick. For those who don't know, Megan Duggan is now a gold medal Olympian, so she earned a gold medal in the 2018 Winter Olympics. She also earned 2 silver medals in the 2014 and 2010 Winter Olympics as well. We have just a lot of things from the past to the modern, but I would say probably my favorite thing that we have on display. And it's an important one because, Danvers has a pretty good town seal. It's got an okay town seal. This, unfortunately, though, is not our town seal. This, I like to call it the town seal of the tribe. So, if you guys can't tell, on it is the Endicott pear tree. Believe it or not, I'm not sure how many of you know this, but the Endicott pear tree is the oldest living cultivated fruit tree in North America. It was brought over by John Endicott in the 17th century, and it was planted right here in Danvers. Now, I love this town seal, even though it failed, and I prefer it actually to our town seal right now, just because our town seal right now is just a bunch of guys in a meeting, and town meetings, I'm not trying to knock them or anything, I'm not trying to bemoan town meetings, but that could be anybody's seal, and I always think that a town seal is meant to be unique to the town, so I really like this seal because no one else can claim the Endicott pear tree. That's us in Danvers. We've had a lot of history taken from us throughout the years, especially with the whole witch trials thing. A lot of that happened right here in Danvers, right there in Peabody as well. But it's all Salem now. But that Endicott pear tree, that's ours. I can't take that away from us. Other artifacts we also have on display here, not just talking about this actual history of our little Danvers right here, but we also have several personal artifacts. So for instance, right here, many of you know the Danvers State Hospital, both for its fame and infamy. This right here is a nurse's cape from the Danvers State Hospital itself. It was donated to us not too long ago. Danvers State Hospital is an important part of Danvers history because, believe it or not, it was one of the few educational hospitals around, and it accepted a lot of different students. And so the woman who graduated from this graduated in 1926 from the Danvers State Hospital. So she used that cape right there. If you want to see this that right there is actually the invitation to her graduation right there. So we have personal artifacts like that, and then we also have personal artifacts like miniatures. Over there is a miniature in the case number 2, I believe it is labeled. No, 3. Miniatures were a big way for people to basically remember their loved ones. So instead of having pictures and things inside their homes, they would have miniatures in order to hold with them as they were traveling or hang in a prominent place in their house. Miniatures often as well had a small glass paneling in the back, and that's where you would hold various locks of hair or other mementos for your family in order to make sure people were able to see everything in there, or just to remember parts of you as you were off at sea. They were particularly common for men who traveled quite often, particularly ship captains. And I'll show you the miniature that we have on display, just because it's kind of tough in there. Right here. Portraits of John and Isabella Gifford. Now, when I first saw this, I was a little confused because I said, man, his portrait just looks way better than hers. And part of me was thinking that it was just him being kind of a jerk about it, but then I realized something, that part of it is also that his picture would be the one that was at home, and meaning that it was a lot more safe, it was a lot more protected. And it was also something that his wife, Isabella, right there, would be able to look at and remember him a lot more fondly and a lot more detailed. Hers, though not as detailed, he was off at sea, he was a merchant. So of course, his was in a lot more danger of being lost, it was a lot more danger of being damaged. However, he always kept a lock of hairs in her, a lock of hair in hers. It's in the back right there. I'm not sure if we have a picture. We don't have a picture of it on display here, but on the back there's a small lock of her hair. And though it's a little less detailed, it's a little less ornate than his is, I would argue it's more personal. Because it's something that he would be able to pull out and not just remember her face by, but also remember her by. Now, remembrance is another important aspect of life in Danvers and life everywhere because, of course, people pass away. And so that's why I want to talk about this next artifact we should have here, is the hair cross. Hair cross is a very mourning artifact. You would often have hair crosses after your family passed away, and it was a good way for you to be able to remember them. This hair cross, I believe, was actually made by the family after their, I believe, the grandmother had passed away, rather. And often you would take blocks of hair from people, and you would actually start stitching them and cross-stitching them together in order to get into that pattern. And it was just another way of remembering your family. In addition to this, I don't know if we have it on our website, but we also have several funeral plates. Funeral plates are basically you put onto your coffin itself, and that's how you'd be able to like see everything, and then oftentimes those would get removed, and you'd keep those at your own home. That way you could basically have a small little thing of your own family right there for you from the funeral itself. So going more into our less about the history, more into the actual project itself now for you guys. The project itself is what you're seeing right here. So all of these pictures are pictures that were part of that project. All these pictures were taken by me, as well as Sheila, as well as Dave, and Laura also helped out a few times as well. So each and every one of these is the physical manifestation of that project for yourself right there. I'm still learning, so if you guys hate them, please don't hate me for it.
We hate some of them.
Hate some of them? Okay. You know what? I'll take some of them. I think I will say some of the most difficult ones, believe it or not, were actually like the sword right at the bottom here. I don't know how many of you have tried to take a picture of something that's shiny before while also still trying to get the details of it. And so if you were here in the middle of the day, you would have seen me on one end holding a light like this, and Sheila down low holding a light like this, and then Laura in the center trying to get the picture perfect. And you'd see that a lot, because believe it or not, pictures are pretty tough to get. This right here, by the way, is one of General Dodge's swords when he earned his, I believe it was when he became a brigadier general. That was when he earned that. This is the hard work we've been up to these last few days, these last few months, really, weeks, yeah. We started this in the summer, and now it's well into October, and it's actually not finished yet. There's still a lot more to do, and a lot of this, I know I'm sort of being brief about a lot of our information here, but that's just because a lot of this we're still learning ourselves. We're still trying to figure out, like, for instance, the fisherman here, and the clam digger that you can see right up here. We know the artist, but we don't know if it was based off of anybody. We don't know if it was just an artist's imagination. Or our anti-slavery society contribution box here. Of course, we know about the anti-slavery societies, but we ourselves don't have too much information on the people that funded those sorts of things. I mean, we've researched some, like Francis S. Dodge. I cannot tell you a whole biography of the man. I got everything on him. Or even like our quilted fire screen, for instance. Our quilted fire screen is one of the most well-known objects in our museum here, just because it's also one of the oldest objects in our entire museum. I think, if I remember correctly, it is the oldest example of patchwork that you can find still around today. In the United States.
If you click on that link, it will give the reference at the bottom of the text.
Right, right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that's right, yeah, it was Quilted magazine, Gold magazine. Where she actually came in.
How is what is the purpose of a fire screen? Is that just decorative, I assume? If you're not using the fireplace, or?
No, so it's actually meant, I believe, to protect you from the fire itself.
Right, so it
Yeah.
would have been on a stand, but the stand's gone, and it would if you were next to the fire, a woman, it protected your face from the fire. Now, I don't know how well this would have done, because it's
Wouldn't that
paper
be nice?
inside, so the woman took, and it was, what's her name, Deborah?
Yeah, Deborah Hobart Clark.
Hobart Clark, so Hobart Street is her family, and then Clark Farm is who she married into, that's her kids' descendants. So she took, traced out the design on a piece of paper, and then attached the fabric to the paper as the hourglass design, the quilting, and then the star in the middle. So, and she used fabric that had a little bit of glitter in it, so when the fire was, it would sparkle. So for her to spend this much time in the fabric probably was not cheap during her time. It kind of shows her status, and I think the woman who wrote the article in the Quilt magazine talks about that this was someone of upper class who would have created this. But for it to survive is amazing.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me how we have so many of these just things that no one would think about, you know, in our collection here. Like we're going through all different spots in our collection. We're trying to find everything we possibly can. And it's always interesting to find like these little things that are hidden away. Like, for instance, Francis S. Dodge, we like kind of knew about him, but once we actually started digging into his history, we found out all this other stuff about him, you know? I mean, like, some of them were not very great, but some of them were very, very interesting. Like,
What was the thing you found out?
so he earned his Congressional Medal of Honor. We don't know if we call it just a Medal of Honor or a Congressional Medal of Honor, but he earned one through his work, I think during the Indian Wars when he was leading a battalion of black people. The Buffalo Soldiers, that's what it was. So he was leading an entire battalion of people who were considered colored at that time. So he's an interesting guy, and like we wouldn't have figured that out if we didn't start into this project at all. I guess I should ask, does anyone have any questions for me? Anything about our project here? Yeah.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, like about that quilt we were just looking at? Some of these, as you remember, back during the slave period, and when slaves were being protected, they were being brought up north here and being protected, messages were being transmitted by means of these quilts. Did you find anything at all in the artifacts in your study about any indication of any kind of a message? Like, if you look at that quilt there, you've got 4 brown bow ties in the middle there, basically, in terms of design. And you got one on the bottom right. Then you got the red ones. I mean, is there a message to that, do you think, or is that just a design factor?
I believe that's just a design. We haven't found anything to suggest a message in our fabric screen.
My limited understanding is the code through the quilts for the Underground Railway would be more for large quilts that people would shake and air and wash outside so people could see the message.
And hang on the line.
On the
Yeah.
clothesline, yeah.
That piece, which is on display here tonight, would be much too small.
Any other questions?
What's your favorite object in the collection so
Oh,
far?
that's a tough one. I would say, I love this town seal.
Yeah.
I wish it was our town seal. I'm gonna petition, compared to that.
What year was the seal? So because I know our current town seal, which actually I like, is from the, I think it's from like the late 1800s. So what's the timing of?
Same time, actually. So
Okay.
it was, so if you want to read that description while I'm talking, they started deciding when to make a town seal in 1892, and this was one of the proposed ideas for it. So it's made of red wax, and it's actually cracking right now, as you can see in the thing, so we try to be fragile with it. But it was one of the proposed town seals, but then it lost down, unfortunately. It was donated to us in 1894, though, by, I think, Justice, forgetting his name right now.
We don't know who did it.
No, yeah, we don't know who actually made the town seal, that is true as well. Yeah,
But there was a news article, Sheila?
there was a small news article about it, and that's where we got most of our information on it, really. Outside of that, there's not too much info.
Would you explain the process you go through to document this kind of information that you're presenting to us? Like, for instance, if I went downstairs, went rummaging around, and I found something that I said, boy, I'd like to know something about this. How do you go about seeking out the best information you can to learn what it is, what its significance is, whether Mabel or Charlie did it, and so forth?
So it sort of depends on the object. So, for instance, I actually have a good example about that. Going to our collections, we have several samplers on display. They're actually over in this case, right over here. Samplers, I'll go to polytools here. Samplers themselves are fairly normal objects, I guess is the best way to put it. Common, yeah. Many like young girls at that time, when they were practicing sewing, and right here Polly Gould is practicing her sewing, would make these samplers and then they would stitch their names into it. But that was about it. They would stitch your names and their age. And then it came down to us to find out more information about Polly Gould herself. And so one of the first things that we did was we actually consulted the town's vital records. We have this small book of vital records. We try to match up names as best we can. And this is one of the names we were able to actually come up, and she was born in 1803. And then we start looking for more information about her. And we go through vital records once again, and then we really try to figure out, oh, who is this Polly Gould? Where did she come from? Who donated it to us as well? And we try to figure out the history of all of that as well. And we actually even found, in that same case, her wedding shoes. We were able to find her wedding shoes as well. But even going to a different object where we don't have the name for someone, for instance, so if I were to do, let's say, portrait of Henry Johnson. Henry Johnson was another character that we really didn't know that much information about. At first we thought he was one guy, and then as we were looking through vital records and as we were trying to find that name, we ended up coming across someone entirely different, and that was Henry Johnson. Even Francis S. Dodge, we thought it was a different Dodge, because there were two Dodges from Danvers, both involved with the Civil War, both I believe were generals, and at first we thought it was, I think his name was John Dodge, if I remember correctly. Grenville Dodge. He was another officer in the Union Army, and we thought it was Grenville Dodge that whole time, and then we found out, like, wait a minute, Grenville Dodge doesn't match up with any of the dates that are possible with any of these collections that we have. And so we basically had to, again, look through vital records, piece together who it might have been, and then really go online after that. And if it's somebody like Grenville, or not, someone like Francis S. Dodge over here, we're able to find sparse information about him. And we sort of just have to piece it together. Like, we still, like I said before, there's still a lot of stuff that we really don't know about a lot of the artifacts, and that's why it's so important that we keep researching them. Because if it wasn't for this accidental little thing, we would have kept thinking that guy was Grenville Dodge. We would have realized that that's his portrait right there. That's why I keep pointing that way, because that's his portrait, and we had it in this hall the whole time, while we thought it was a totally different guy that owned it. So, like, that's sort of the process behind it. Any other questions?
It might have got like catalog cards.
Oh, catalog cards? Oh, so that's a whole other issue. Now you got me going. That's a whole other issue in itself. So, one of the other first things we do is we check to make sure it has an accession number. For those of you who work with accession numbers, you know that they are a pain in the butt if you don't have it anywhere. And then you have to build it up yourself. But sometimes you do have the accession number. And when you do, you're able to piece together whatever information whoever cataloged it before left you. So sometimes it will be something extremely useful. I'm trying to think, what's a good one that we had where it just had absolutely everything on it? For instance, actually the Danvers Town Seal. The catalog card that we had for the Danvers Town Seal had a lot of the most relevant information right away for us. And so we were able to piece it together and then do a deeper dive and figure out the rest of it, at least most of what we could find. But for a catalog card like I'm trying to see if we have a picture of it here. We don't have a picture of it online yet, but we have a mourning picture. Mourning pictures were often used after someone passed away and they were embroidered. So we have a mourning picture downstairs for a Putnam. I'm forgetting her first name now, though. Nancy? It wasn't.
Betsy.
Oh, Betsy. I was thinking it was Nancy, but it was Betsy Putnam. All we had was what the materials were, and we had to do all the digging ourselves there. So again, we had to go into the vital records. We had to see that catalog card and figure out what it was made of, and if it was made of something in particular, maybe try to figure out if there was something special about the way that it was made or special about the materials of it. If we couldn't find that, then we had to figure out who Betsy Putnam was, and that was also a process that took a long time as well. Because again, there's a lot of people who are named Betsy, there's a lot of people who are named Putnam, there's a lot of people named Betsy Putnam, so it takes a little bit to do all those things as well.
I just put that up on the website.
Oh, did you? Let's see.
It doesn't have any text yet, but if you refresh your...
There it is. So as you can see, First off, it's very fragile. That's why we don't have it up here today, just because we don't want to move anything we don't have to move. So we didn't have it up today. But as you can see, there's not a whole lot to go on here. There's a man who's mourning in front, and then there's a woman off to the side, and the name itself on the thing is Betsy Putnam. But who was Betsy Putnam? And so we had to figure out that that was her husband on the right, not a son or anything, and on the left was her daughter. And they were both mourning her, and then, so it's just trying to piece all this little stuff together here, everything like that.
Okay, so I gotta fix that, so the artist was not Betsy.
No, the artist was not Betsy. The artist was Betsy's daughter. I forget Betsy's daughter's
And
name.
that's all in embroidery.
It is all embroidery, yes.
Was this, I've never seen anything like that before. Was that common to certain religious traditions?
Not that I've been able to find. It was common enough of a practice that mourning pictures are not a rare sight.
Mhm.
But it was uncommon enough because it just took a lot of skill to do. And so usually, the girls who did this, because it was almost, I think it was actually only women really that did this, they did it when they were in school and if a family member had passed while they were learning how to sew while they were in school. That's when they would make something as intricately designed as this. Yeah.
I just want to say, my name is Tom Page, how proud I am to see this. When I first came a trustee here and went downstairs, Sheila, I think you took me there, I almost cried because we had a treasure of stuff and no one could see it. And the advent of technology has allowed you and Sheila and Nora and everybody else to present this. I just think it's terrific. And thank you so very, very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tom, for this beautiful website.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really like about being here in particular, is because we have so much interesting stuff in Danvers. There is such a weirdly deep history to Danvers that no one knows about and that no one talks about. Because Danvers was a surprisingly worldwide place. We have merchants from Danvers that, so for instance, the guy I mentioned earlier, Henry Johnson, he was trading all around the world. His ship could be found everywhere. His ship could be found in Italy, and I think he even went over as far as to China, if I remember correctly. He went absolutely everywhere, but no one talks about him. I don't know why, but no one does. And even things like Oak Knoll, I'm from Haverhill, or I live in Haverhill, I should say, and that's, the birthplace of J.G. Whittier, and that's why I like to make a jab at Haverhill, that we have his death place. Because, no one talks about where, people ended up, where they lived.
Well, we did Hannah Dustin here.
We what? We had what?
We did Hannah Dustin here, history series.
Yeah.
Big star up there.
Big star. It's one of those things that's just, there's a lot of interesting stuff downstairs. And I really like bringing it to people, because it's not something everybody knows about,
It's a treasure.
It's a treasure. And it's a treasure we do our best to keep with and everything. We do our best to make sure everybody knows about and improves. But it's still a work in progress. It's still us trying to figure out everything that we can do.
And when we were looking at other websites this spring and summer as to how do we want to set up our gallery, picture says 1,000 words, of course, so you have to have that. And we knew we wanted to keep the text brief, so it would whet the appetite of the viewer. Some of these objects are so rich with stories, there's no way we can get it all on this website. So this is just a sampling.
What program are you using?
We're using mostly Past Perfect to store everything.
Past Perfect is our database
Yeah.
for our session numbers. And the website itself is a WordPress product.
And then, I don't know, how do we crop our images? Because you're usually the one who crops them.
That's in the, let's see. I think it's recommended to do what you want to do with photograph before you bring it into WordPress, but I've been,
Using WordPress for that too.
I've been doing it within the website.
I do that.
I'm sure if, a few of the items, if I get called out on some of them, I'll probably have to go back to the source file.
It's so nice now that this is here, like, I could imagine a really great, like, creative writing workshop where you invite people to choose an object and just start to kind of imagine the stories behind that object, and that wouldn't really be possible without
That
this
is
work.
perfect, because these have so many stories in the downstairs, so many stories, and they're just begging to be told.
I think that's why we like our partnership with Salem State, I forget the professor's name right now. Gretchen. Because she'll like bring students in, and it's an art class, so they'll research mostly like the material, but they'll also research a lot of the background info. That's how we got like some of the information, for instance, on John and Isabella Gifford was, I forget where they went now, but it was where we got a lot of our sort of starting info on them, and a lot of starting info on even like our morning pieces and things. Up there they are. And everything shifted over, so yeah.
Yeah. This is a quick question. I think this is terrific. And in terms of, did you get any help also in terms of, because the Historical Society has been around a long time,
Yeah.
and we published for a number of years the historical collections. Was there anything that was helpful in there as to artifacts and such, any sort of explanation?
As Sheila is motioning now, yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Right.
So again, we used absolutely anything that would have information. So we dug back into our old information about it. We dug back into every possible thing that we had like on site that we could possibly access. So absolutely yes.
There's a wealth of, the problem with those. You have to go in every single one. There is an index for the first 5 years,
Okay.
and then they really didn't do it after that. So it starts in 1912, I think.
Right.
So like Henry Johnson, we have stuff on him
Yep.
because in the index I found there's a whole article on mariners of
Sure.
Danvers. And then that's where we found, first I found his son, I found like another Johnson, and then I'm reading it, and I'm going, well, the time period's not right. Then I find in the article, Henry, his father's name. So anyway, so that provided, like the town seal, there was a whole article
Awesome.
written in the 1960s about this conflict between two groups of people that wanted the different town seals. And what I really liked on the town seal was that was a time women didn't have the right to vote. And one of the people on the committee for the Endicott Territory was a woman, and she was leading that fight.
Awesome.
And then the men came in and went, no, we want the men attending a meeting picture. So she lost. Yeah.
That's good.
Let's bring it up to vote again.
I know.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's, yeah, you depend a lot on those, and then also Harriet Tapley's book,
Sure.
Chronicles of Danvers,
Yep.
she provided quite a bit.
Gotcha.
You can entertain
Are you done with this project, or are you going to
it.
be?
No, there's more that's to do. Absolutely.
May I offer my photographic skills for photographing additional objects?
I would think so. I mean, I don't see.
Yes, definitely, please.
He's good at what he does.
I would have no objections. I'm certain, I guess that would come down to Laura and Sheila more than me, but I would have no objections.
It just, please don't take this inappropriately, but it looks like you're not doing enough after image capture processing to
That's me.
make.
No, I'm not.
Sheila, he's good. And I'm saying it, so I'm,
She wants you out of the house.
Yeah.
no.
We're looking for a few good men.
That sounds like a movie.
No, I'm not doing any touch up at all. I just.
I'm available, let me know
Thank
at your convenience.
That would be great, yeah.
Any other questions?
Why don't you ask the audience about the fire bucket, the image of Mercury when it's on there, see if anyone has any thoughts.
Oh yeah, so that's something we've been trying to figure out. So as you can see, this fire bucket that has Philman Putnam on it, his name. It has an image of Mercury, or Apollo, or not Apollo. What's the Greek version? Okay. There's Mercury, and then the Greek version is, I'm forgetting his name now, but the Roman god Mercury. We're trying to figure out exactly what he's on there for. We've had a couple guesses, but we haven't been able to figure out any exact reason as to why. My current guess right now is that Mercury was also the god of messengers, and that when you have a fire, naturally you want the word to get out pretty quick, and you want people to know what's going on quickly. And so that's why they put the god of messengers on there, because he would also be able to get you in. But if you're also looking at like the actual art itself, there's also some like hints in there as to exactly what it is, because even Mercury himself with his red robes almost looks like fire himself, and like kind of the darkness of the cloud that's even smoking a little bit. So we've been trying to figure out, if you guys have any ideas, I would love to hear them.
I think it's messenger.
Okay.
Used to be FedEx, whatever was the, Mercury was the logo. But if I were going to make it up, I would say he's the god of thermometers. And if the mercury in the thermometer gets really high, it's going to be on fire.
I like that one.
By the way, a lot of the stuff that's downstairs, we had assessed it sometimes, huh? And those fire buckets are assessed at $800 a piece.
You've been handling that pretty well. Thank God for that.
So we wear the gloves.
Yeah, we wear the gloves and everything. Oh yeah, we make sure.
Well, it's interesting too, this design or symbol, when we Googled it on the website, it's on other fire buckets.
Yeah.
also. So it's not like just here in these.
Yeah, it's wicked common.
Yeah, like
Wonder
there's
if
one
the
in
fire
the
department would
Smithsonian, there's one in, yeah, we try to look through Googling stuff on the fire department to see if Mercury is a symbol they use.
I wonder if it's like speed, something like was mentioned earlier, like,
Yeah.
because isn't like the old logo for like FTD, like floral delivery?
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
That's so there's like a lot of theories that we have. Unfortunately, we don't want to publish anything on the website and tell people something that we don't know for a fact is true. So that's why we haven't
We
put
can say
it.
that we all said that, so just blame us.
Yeah, just I'll say, listen, they said I could do it.
This was an object too that Gretchen, the art teacher, she used in her class. And so the students had the same problem. They did all this research on Mercury and I'd be finding other paintings and stuff, but they weren't able to connect it to the fire.
Gotcha. What's the age of that? Is it?
That one, 1825, listed right on there. Or I should say it's active 1825. I don't know if that means that's when it was made, or if that's just when they were using it, but
Sure.
that's the earliest date I think we have on that fire button in particular.
Can you go back and, I just would like to talk about, if you can talk about me.
Oh, yes.
Because that's a recent donation.
Yes, so we have one of the most recent donations. I totally forgot to talk about him, but he's a very cool guy. We have Manny Wise, professionally known as Manny Denies, I think it was, or it was Denise? Denies. So Manny Wise was a quintessential player, literally and figuratively, in the jazz scene of Boston throughout a great deal of, I guess, like the mid to late 20th century. He was an English immigrant. He grew up in London, and he started playing music over there. And then he moved to Boston originally with his family, and then he ended up in Danvers, and he stayed in Danvers his entire life. And we have that number 6 over there is dedicated to all of him and all of his players as well. He had a quintet. He called it just a full-on orchestra. There were 5 of them, so we call it a quintet. And they were some of like the biggest names in jazz, really, that no one's ever heard of. It's sort of like, you know how people have like a musician's favorite musician, and it's like somebody that no one knows, but it's like they're the best one. That was very similar to what Manny was. We were able to find, unfortunately he's passed away now, so we can't really talk to him directly, but we have been able to find several interviews with him. There's a few books that even have large sections dedicated to Manny Wise, specifically as a Boston musician or Massachusetts musician, and especially in the jazz scene. So we really want to honor him for a couple of reasons, because one, he was a really big player, literally. And two, he's just a very, very interesting person. He's a very interesting Danvers history person as well. He's from Danvers right here. So that's why we like to show him
I
off.
put some other photos on the website there.
Oh, perfect.
So, yeah.
So yeah,
Where did
here's,
you get the pieces from?
those actually came from, what was his name?
Totally, that, one of his students.
One of his students.
So, Rebecca, so, we're friends with the student.
Sure.
And, found out that Manny had passed away, but we didn't really know who, I didn't know who he was.
Sure.
But anyway, so the student contacted us, and he knows the family real well, and so he was able to get this from the family and donate it to us. And he was also an artist, so there's a drawing up there of Louis Armstrong. So Coley has like a stack of drawings of his, and they're mostly all jazz musicians. So like we took they let us take the Benny Goodman and the Louis Armstrong.
I'm not sure if there's any relation to it, because even in, like, my dad went to, graduated from Danvers High like in '49, and one of his classmates is a guy named Dick Chortzik, who grew up in the Fowler House, like a historic house in downtown Danvers, played in Boston, was in jazz pianist, played with Chet Baker, and died in Paris, like at age 24, of a heroin overdose. But he had just a really short, just very interesting, interesting jazz career, and was well known sort of in jazz scenes.
So it's kind of like, I like to use Manny as an example to people today to say we're all, and Megan's copies that
Exactly.
a historical society is collecting today for people who live now and are making history, or making extraordinary, or just interesting people, like the family that just donated Marian's nurse cake. When it first arrived, I just kind of, then we started researching it and went, oh my God, and the family, the other problem with, getting a donation is sometimes people just come and dump it. And they don't tell us anything about it, so it doesn't do us any good. What's its connection to Danvers? So going back to who donated it and say, well, what has this got to do with Danvers? So then it's trying to separate, well, that's Beverly. But that's the main thing too, is getting as much information when they donate it today, which they didn't do so much 100 years ago. And that's why, like Liam said, then it's like the catalog card didn't tell us anything.
It's definitely the worst when you have like that type of situation where catalog card doesn't tell us anything, but we might have a name. And then we look through every vital record we can to find out that name never existed during that time period in Danvers. And then we're like, what does this got to do with us? And we try to figure it out. That's one of the little mysteries that is part of being here, is just trying to just figure out.
Is there a particular period of time which is sort of like a dead spot in terms of cataloging? I mean, like certain times during the wars or something where it's it's from this era, we're not going to get anything.
None that I
That's a good question, though, to look to see. I mean, you have Danvers, I think in the 1880s when the society was created, it was all Revolutionary War, and that's why the Page House is saved because of Jeremiah Page, and not because of Ann Page, who ended the historic first kindergarten school in the United States, one of the first. So it's kind of that situation, but that'd be interesting to kind of go through the collection and see, what time periods are you missing, and then do a call out to people. I don't think we had any Danvers State Hospital stuff.
Unfortunately, no. The only thing we have is a giant picture of it. We do know that the Danvers State Hospital, a little fun fact, was built on General Dodge's land there, so we do know that. Listen, I know a lot about General Dodge, I gotta use that info somehow. I will say, for our collections in particular, in some of the earlier years, we didn't put a year to the accession number. So right now, if you were to donate one today, we would do 21, I think we're at 11, like point 11, then point 1. Older accession numbers are DH for Danvers Historical, and then just a number. And it just sequentially goes that way. So a lot of those earlier donations, you just don't really know the years of them, unfortunately. Like sometimes they listed out the year on the catalog card, and then sometimes they didn't. So that would be interesting. I'll have to do that sometime.
A question on that though, today, accessioning something, we would do 2021, wouldn't we? Because we do have things, 21 means
Oh,
19,
yeah, yeah, it's true, we'd have to do 2021, yes.
Yeah.
Because we do, that is right, we do have things that are from 1921 that are listed as 21. That does make it tough sometimes when we have like 13, and we're like, well, which 13? 2013, 1913, trying to figure that out, yeah. That's another one that is a unique challenge that we have.
Are there any of the items that are currently published on the website that you are still digging into and researching?
So, any items on the website we are still digging into?
Like you're still trying to figure out the Mercury, what?
We're still trying to figure out Mercury. We're still trying to find this woman here, Judah Jackie. We have not been able to find her in any vital records. Her name does not show up anywhere in Danvers. We don't really know who she is, but we know she made this here. And there's a little fun poem right at the bottom there. It says, Judith Jackie is my name, and with my deeds I rode. We can really read it. And then, if my skill had been better, I should have mended every, I think it's supposed to be stitch. So, like, that doesn't give us anything. So kind of going back to the cataloging of everything and figuring out things in the process behind it, sometimes we just hit these dead ends and we're just like, who is this person?
So does it say on there, did she embroider Danvers?
I think on the catalog card for the specific one, it says it was made in Danvers, if I remember correctly. And then other ones that we're still researching here. We're still researching the morning picture. You can't see it right there. We're still researching the morning picture. We're still trying to get a little bit more info on the Anti-Slavery Society's contribution box, I believe. Just to round that out. I think the rest of the things that we're still currently researching, we have not put on the website just because we're still researching them. And there's a lot more info that we want to make sure we have before we can put them out.
And I have to put in the new Noah's Ark picture.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
All right, we have our Noah's Ark here. So here's an interesting thing about the Noah's Ark. So this Noah's Ark in particular, it was owned by, what was his name? It was, yes, Alden Goodnow. It was owned by Alden Goodnow. And these arcs, you're actually able to find, not necessarily variants, but like the same arc just painted differently. And they were all created by a company after World War I called the War Relief Toy Works. It was a company that was based in London, England, and it was mostly owned and operated by disabled veterans who fought in World War I and needed to work. And the toys that they generally created were meant for the orphans and for like veterans' families who were either disabled veterans or veterans' families themselves. And so it was like meant for their children or children who had been orphaned by the war itself. So that's like one of the, I think this is one of the most interesting pieces that we have here. And it was mostly distributed in England, but they made a pretty big showing in America and also Australia. But I think after only like, not even that long, I want to say maybe 5-10 years of making them, you just don't really find them anymore. And so they were just this very interesting product of its time, and it's very exciting that we had, that Alden Goodnow had one. and that it's just part of our history here in Danvers as well, especially to the Danvers Historical Society itself. But this is like another thing even that we're still trying to research and everything. Like, we have like a lot of information about it, but we don't know quite everything yet. And then, yeah. Thank you for pointing out Noah's Ark, because I like Noah's Ark. I think that's one of the most interesting things that we have in our entire collection here.
I had a suggestion for Manny Wise. Called Berkeley School of Music.
Berkeley School of Music?
Yeah. There was a drummer, Matt Carrington, who played with manuals, black and white, which was a big, I went to their 100-year, whatever, at Salem Willows a number of years ago, and Carrington's son was the head of the Massachusetts Jazz Association, and his daughter, so the granddaughter, is Terry Lynn Carrington, who was Arsenio Hall's band leader when he had a TV show, and she teaches at Berkeley. But there's got to be people there who just know, not everybody in that picture.
Yeah, yeah.
But Wise is in lots of other pictures.
Yeah.
You know, with so many different configurations of bands.
Yeah.
And somebody could identify that. That's from the 1950s, or, you know, when you said he didn't die maybe that long ago, but.
He died in 2020, I think, right?
Yeah, wow.
Right near Danvers. Oh, this year, 2021. Oh, okay.
But that's so recent, you know,
Yeah.
you know, people who played with him are still around, and
Yeah.
and somebody at Berkeley wants to give out information like that. And I don't know who they are. I'm saying they would be happy to do that.
Yeah. We'll have to do that.
I'm very familiar with the Needle family from Beverly. And that's the kind of thing that you were talking about before in terms of art, music, writing, and everything. That there are so many things to yield into, look into, and expand it. And it just makes whatever you're doing for that person, you know, come alive.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments or anything?
Did you spy anything down in this basement that we haven't photographed yet that you're looking forward to learning about?
So this is a selfish one of me. Those who don't know, I am a very big fan of pocket watches. And we have several pocket watches downstairs, and we have one very interesting pocket camera. It looks and seems exactly like a pocket watch, but you put like a roll of film in it and you just take a picture with your pocket watch, basically. It is so interesting. I know nothing about it, and that's one of those things that I'm very excited about getting into. So definitely.
James Bond.
Very James Bond. So that's one of those things that I'm very excited about learning more about. Some of those little odds and ends that we have down in the basement. And also, if we get the chance to, I'd like to do more of like the portraits that we have downstairs, because I think we have like a lot of collections of portraits, and a lot of them have probably not been seen in many, many years, and so I'm very excited to also show off the artwork that we have downstairs, because a lot of it's very good. Just we don't really show it off too much, so it's one of those things that I would also like to research more about.
We have several of them in the Page House that, you know, haven't been really taken care of in terms of when that was taken, who was it.
Yeah. I think, and then also, one thing I am very excited to do, and I do have an idea for a program we might be able to do with it, is we have cookbooks downstairs. And those who cannot tell, I like to eat. I like to eat a lot. And I really would like to try to put on some sort of program where we cook some stuff from the cookbooks. But if you look in that right there in the enclosed white case right there, we have one of the cookbooks on display. And cookbooks back then, we have a lot of them that were made by, or compiled, I should say, by the First Congregational Church. I always say Congressional. First Congregational Church on Maple Street. I'm not sure if it's there anymore. Is it still there? Yeah, so it was compiled by them. We have one from 1945 and 1953. And it's so interesting seeing some of the recipes that they had back then. Because like that's just like another little interesting thing that is a fun little aspect of history, is like the way people eat. And I will say some of the recipes I don't think I eat today, but they'd be really interesting to like work out and actually do. Like some of them, I will say call for raw chicken, and I'm not sure I'm doing that, but there's a lot of cool recipes. Lard is a huge factor of lard. Caro syrup, oh yeah, just all that nice stuff.
Lard is great.
Lard's great, you know?
I make my pies from the Boston Globe Bride's Cookbook from 1960 or something.
Yeah.
It's lard.
Well, this is what intrigues me. Someone Liam's age, and he's just fascinated with some items that us older folks are somewhat familiar with.
Yeah.
And I think it's great that things from the 40s, 50s, and 60s are really exciting a young person's investigative.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why don't we call for a dinner? A Danvers Historical Society Dinner of the Past.
No, you could do it as
All the
a
butter and
potluck.
lard you can
Like
find.
people could choose a recipe.
Yeah, a lot of
and then
salt, a lot of
make it
pepper.
and have a potluck.
Yeah.
We
Like,
have a lot of people signing liability waivers.
And we'll have some blood work afterwards.
Well,
I grew up on potluck.
Yeah, you and I were talking about potlucks earlier today, yeah. Because that was sort of the point of a lot of these early like church cookbooks, is that they were compiled so that people could have potlucks and they would share each other's recipes. Yeah. I also like that particular cookbook we have on display, because right above it, whoever owned it last made changes to the recipes. That she was like, no, I don't like this recipe, change it to this. And she like listed out the recipe and she added the change. I just thought that was really cool. There's some of those little additions that people make, you know?
it could have also been the editor of it. Like I remember my parents did a cookbook for their church PTA, and I still have the copy of their copy edited version before it went into print, where they were like, hey, this, change this. So you might have had like the authors.
Yeah.
Right, in your case there.
And that just shows that we still don't know everything about our items. Like there's, like even the cookbooks, we don't quite know everything about them yet.
And because this is history, you can figure out if the Congregational Church stole the recipe from the Methodists.
Church is worth a lot of money with food.
Yeah.
That church up at Topsfield Fair, that little church place there, where they have the turkey dinners, $14 for a turkey dinner this year. Place was packed. Unbelievable.
What is so 1889 is when the society formed, and they probably started collecting, so there's probably an accession number 1889.
We have,
1.1.
I know we have 89. I don't know if we have 1889 as an accession number. Because I know for a fact we have 89. I think that's supposed to be 1989 though when they wrote it.
What is our old session number?
The first one.
DH1 would be our oldest accession.
Do we know the year that one came in?
I don't know.
Um,
Probably, I would assume when we started, it was probably then, so probably
1890
18
or
or something.
And then we don't, I wonder in the database, is there a field that says the age of the object? So if someone in 1890 gave an object from, they knew for a fact that so-and-so embroidered this in 1670. I'm just curious, because I haven't studied the database enough. I'm in our membership database, I'm not in the artifact database. So I don't know if there's a field. There is some.
There is, yeah, but not all of them have that filled out as the issue.
Right.
Sometimes it's in that field, sometimes it's in the description, which is still very helpful, and sometimes it's just not there at all. Even on a lot of our most of our DHs, I would say, don't have a field that's listed for the year that it was made.
Because I could probably sort by each field, so I could sort by the field it was donated to us, but
Yeah.
I could sort by the date that it was manufactured, embroidered, or created, if it's there. But a lot of our data is lacking, yeah.
And I will say that's not necessarily through our fault. We're working with what we got. You know?
No, it's historical.
It's history. Put the blame on the past. You know, it's all good.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Liam, but you're gonna stick around with us a little bit longer and help put more objects on our
Absolutely.
website?
As far as I'm concerned, every Wednesday is with you guys. I've got it marked on my calendar. You can ask my wife. It's just every Wednesday. It's just stuck there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for spending time with the Danvers Historical Society. Please be sure to visit our website to donate at www.danvershistory.org. Have a nice day.